All right, how's it going, everybody? Today you're going to be taking the quarter three test. So to get you ready, here's a little review. In the form of an error analysis, there is a question that talks about error analysis, so we might as well practice it now. So you should have your word wall ready. When you open up your Chromebook, you should also have Desmos automatically open up for you, and it's the Desmo Scientific. So we should be ready to go. Remember, no phones during the test. But let's get this review on the way. So it says find the real solution to the equation, round to the nearest tenth, and Orlando's work is shown below. So when you do an error analysis, the best thing to do is do the problem yourself. See, the question here says 6 minus x plus 1 quantity to the power of 5 is equal to 131. Now, we have something in our word wall that kind of helps us with this. And when I look at my word wall carefully, it says it right here. Look, this equation has a power, an exponent. So it says you have to solve by using reverse PEMDAS. What that means is I should be getting rid of all these extra values. So for instance, I should be getting rid of that 6 by moving it to the other side. Now, notice I still have a negative here. X plus 1 to the power of 5 is equal to 125. But then this is when you pause and then you look at what they did. So they did do a subtraction of 6, and then look at what they have. They have the 125. All right, there it is. The x plus 1 power of 5 with a negative, x plus 1 with, you see? Look at that. There's the mistake. We already spotted their issue. You're supposed to have a minus sign in front or a negative. They forgot that negative right there. Look at this one. It should be there, but they left it out. So when it says describe the error is they forgot to write the negative in front of the parentheses x plus 1 to the power of 5. So they forgot the negative. So it should be negative x plus 1 to the power of 5. That's the negative they forgot. So there's a mistake. All right, well, we found their error, which is basically happening in their first step right there. But now we're going to finish the problem ourselves. Now, remember, there's a way of getting rid of negatives. We can divide everything by -1. That's one way of doing it. And so when I do this, we have x plus 1 to the power of 5 is now equal to negative 125. All right, well, according to the word wall, it says to undo an exponent, right? To get rid of an exponent, take the corresponding root to both sides. Well, that just means the only way to get rid of a power of 5 is to bring in a radical. And it's not just any radical, it has to match the power. So it should be an index of 5. And by doing this, we end up with x plus 1 on this side. And if you're wondering, hey, I have a negative inside, it's an odd root. So that's okay. We can have negatives inside. And the other thing is, usually you question, you go, well, do I put a plus or minus? Well, again, it's an odd root. So no plus or minus either. Now, I've already tested this on a calculator and I get this weird decimal. So I'm just going to leave it alone the way it is. And I'm going to save the calculator for later. So I continue to solve by taking away a 1. And so here's what I would type into my calculator. The fifth root of negative 125 minus 1. Now, when you type it in, you have to make sure that that negative 1 is not inside the square root. So let me show you very quickly here. So here's my Desmo Scientific, which is what's going to open up for the test for you. And so I do a fifth root of negative 125. And then make sure you press the little side arrow. Just go to the side and then type in the -1. And so there's our answer. Our answer, according to the Desmos calculator, is negative 3.6. So there's our solution. So yeah, obviously they were way off because of that tiny little mistake. Okay. See, by not putting in the negative, it kind of messed it up for them. Now, question number 2. So let's go to question. Actually, let's do number 3 since it's right next to it. So in question number 3, here we go. All right, it looks like they brought SOHCAHTOA into the mix. So we're going to start from the beginning, right? We mark our angle. So the 41 is our angle. Now let's check. Maybe they messed up the labeling. This side doesn't touch that angle. So yes, that's opposite. Here's the 90. So that's the hypotenuse. And yep, that's definitely adjacent. Okay, their labeling is good. So now let's see. This is what I would circle because I have a value that I'm looking for. This is the only value they gave me. So anything with an H should be gone. Well, that's where we look at our friend SOHCAHTOA to guide us, right? SOHCAHTOA. And when I look at this, we go, hey, anything with an H is gone. Here's an H, can't use that. Can't use that. TOA is part of the name, so tangent is the winning trig function, and that's exactly what they did. All right, so tangent, it needs an angle, so there's the 41. And then here comes the order of the fraction, O and A, right? So we're using our word wall here, of course, to set these things up. So here's my tangent of an angle, 41. I need the opposite. The opposite is 8. The adjacent is the x. And look at that. We already spotted their mistake. Look at that. They wrote x over 8. It should have been 8 over x. So then the mistake they made, right, the error is that they wrote, it's the wrong order. We're just going to cut it short. It's the wrong order for tangent. They did A over O, which is wrong. It should be O over A. All right, but there, we found their mistake, so we know their answer is wrong. And so we said, when we solve this, we multiply both sides by whatever's in the denominator. So we're going to multiply both sides by x. And so I have x tangent of 41 is equal to 8. Now, I'm not ready for my calculator because x is not by itself. So this one does require an extra step. If the x were by itself, I wouldn't even divide, but I kind of have to here. So I'm going to divide by tangent of 41. And so I'm ready for my calculator. Now remember, the Desmos Scientific is the calculator that's going to open up for you. And here's the only thing you need to watch out for right here. Just make sure that in this spot, so let me bring it back, it says the letters DEG for degree. You need to see those letters. The mistake people are making is they press on it thinking, oh, I'll press on it to turn it into degrees. Now your answers are going to be wrong because they're in radian. So again, make sure that you can see the DEG and then leave it alone. All right, so here we go. We're going to type in our fraction. So here's the 8. And at the bottom, we're going to write tangent of 41 again. We're only doing that because I was trying to get the x by itself. And I'm going to round 9.2 is my solution. So I come back to my problem and we write our 9.2. So again, just make sure with the calculator one last time, it says DEG, and then you're good to go for the test. All right, so let's keep this review going. Notice how we're reviewing concepts and at the same time learning about error analysis. Now, you do have an error analysis question where it's going to be more like this, multiple choice, and you have to tell me what step they messed up on. So here's a different type of question for us. And remember, we've said before that when you see a square root, you should be rewriting. They say simplify, not solve. I should be rewriting it so that it says 6. And then because it's a radical, it used to be a fraction, just remember the index is your denominator. So there's the 3, 7 goes on top. But then we're going to do it again. There's the 6. There's my power, that's a fraction. Yeah, the 3's underneath. Just remember there is an invisible 1 with the 6. So we put a 1 there. And if you notice, step number 1 is perfect. All right, so they didn't mess up there. Now let's talk about, well, what would I do next to this? It says 6 times 6, so I see the base twice, but that's why you have a word wall here to guide you. We're looking at the power rules here. And so the question is, the mistake people make is to go, oh, I'm multiplying. I should multiply my powers. No. You multiply powers when you only have one base with 2 powers. This is 2 bases, 2 6s. That means it looks more like this one. Look at that, 2 6s. Then I should be adding my powers. So I should have 6, 7 over 3 plus 1 over 3. And look at that, we just found their mistake. This is where they made a mistake on step 2. So then that's the one I circle, not the step before, that current step that they're in. And so obviously everything else is wrong from now on for them. So my answer would be 6 to the power of 8 over 3. Remember, they never said give me decimals. Leaving the answer like this is fine. You're just reducing. And I can't even reduce that fraction, so I'll just leave it like that. All right. Well, let's keep it going. So there's a review on how to handle these. So now we're going to review sequences. So it says a student was asked to find a sub 16 for this sequence right here. Now we don't know what kind of sequence it is. So let's see if we can find the pattern. The numbers are getting bigger. So it looks like they're adding by 3, which means this is arithmetic. And if it's arithmetic, I'm going to list the letter D, which is 3 for this problem. Now, I'm ready to go with this one. I noticed that they wrote the rule. Check it out. This is how I recognize that this is a rule that was given. So they went with the rule first. Nowhere did it say recursive. Then the reason I bring that up is when you're using your word wall for Unit 7, which, by the way, is the last page of your test. These are the ones you're going to do by hand, not on the computer there. So when we're looking here, right, we have explicit arithmetic and we have recursive arithmetic. They never said the word recursive. Then this is the formula that I'm going to be applying for this problem. And when I'm applying this formula, it says you need to know your common difference. All right, I have that already. But the other thing they're asking for is they said you better have your zero term. Well, your zero term is the one that happened before the number 4, because that's your a sub 1. Well, if we were adding 3 to go this way, let's subtract the 3. And just like that, we have our a sub 0. A sub 0 is just a 1. And remember, when you're creating a formula, you copy everything you see here without any changes. So it's a sub n is equal to, all right, I'm going to replace the letter D with a 3. I have to put the letter n right next to it, plus my a sub 0, which is 1. And look at that, we already found their mistake. They put a 4 when it's supposed to be a 1. So their mistake is that they used a sub 1 instead of a sub 0. So man, they messed up right on step number 1. So that means everything is wrong from now on for that problem, but we're going to do it ourselves and finish it off. So we found their mistake, but remember, this is the rule. Now they said, all right, we'll use that rule to find a sub 16. See, now I finally use the 16. I plug it in where it belongs, plus 1. And so my answer for a sub 16 is 49. Again, we're just practicing some of the concepts that are on the test and at the same time learning about error analysis. Now, there are 4 more to go here, so let's keep it going. That way we have time to take the test without any issues of running out of time or anything like that. So they said find the reference angle theta prime. And this is the theta they want me to work with. All right, well, you know what? This is a good time to practice this concept, how to draw angles. Now, when you draw an angle, yes, you always show this right here. This is my initial side, which is the 0 mark. But then obviously we need a couple more marks. This would be 90. This is 180. And yeah, that's all I need for this angle. But you know what? Just for practice, 270, 360. And if you needed more, then you would just keep adding 90 as you go along. This would be 450. But anyways, they wanted an angle that measures 146. So we know that's between these two numbers. So maybe my angle somewhere in there. There's the 146. But remember, most importantly, you need that directed angle. There's my answer for drawing an angle. But when they said, give me the reference angle, well, again, that's why this is where your word wall kicks in to try to help you out. But when you're looking for reference angle, so here it is in your word wall. Look at the note we wrote. It's the smallest angle back to the x-axis. We never use the y-axis. And if you never use the y-axis, then I should never think of the 90 or the 270 when I'm trying to do a reference angle. My reference angle goes from here, and then this is the shortest path back to the x-axis. I'm not going to go this way. This way is too far to get back to the x-axis. This is my theta prime, which means I need these two numbers right here. And already I see their mistake. Look at that. They use 360. That's way too far away from that angle to be a reference angle. So the mistake is that they use 360. So we won't worry about writing something. We just want to get to the test. So theta prime means I should be using these two numbers. So I'm going 180 minus 146, which of course means my angle in this case, well, My angle would be 30, what is this, 34? Yeah, 34 degrees. And just like that, we're done with that problem. So the mistake was, right, we won't worry about writing it, is that they used 360 instead of 180. And here's another one that's supposed to be one of the easier questions on the test. Since it's next to it, we'll just do it right away. This, it says, let sine be negative radical 3 over 2. Okay. Let cosine be 1/2. And then all they said was, give me the angle that has these two values. Well, this is a unit circle question. The issue is when I was looking at your unit circles, when I was walking around, a lot of you were missing the most important piece. This is the most important thing about the unit circle. It's how you write points. Your x is your cosine, your y is your sine value. So that's why here, this is the x, this is the y, and the way you attack this problem is by writing out the point. And the point would be 1/2, and careful with that hidden negative radical 3 over 2. And if you notice, there's their mistake. They wrote it in the wrong order. So wrong order right there for this one. So this is the correct one. So obviously that's why that's wrong, because they have the wrong order. But now it's time for me to match this, and it has to match perfectly. That's why you got to watch out for those negatives. And so when I'm looking at my word wall, people might say, oh, look, there it is. Positive 1/2. Well, there you go. Positive 1/2 and negative radical 3 over 2. No, that's not a negative. Don't rush to do it, because then if you notice down here, there's the positive 1/2 and the negative radical 3 over 2. Now I have two answer choices, in degree or in radian. Well, if you look, they wanted this thing in degrees. So my answer would be 300. That's what my theta is, 300 degrees. Okay, but you have to write it as a point, and you need to write it correctly. That's why you have to know who's your x, who's your y, but that's what people are missing in their word wall. All right, 2 more to go. We got to get to that test. So now for this one, it says a student was asked to simplify the expression. So here's the expression. Well, you know what? I don't have room there to work it out, but they did say to write it in this form. Please don't let that throw you off. It doesn't mean you're solving for A, for M, or N. You don't even have an X and a Y. They're just letting you know you should have one of each letter and a number in the front. So don't worry too much about that. You just do the math. So it says 3, a to the 4, b to the 4, to the power of 2, 6, a to the 3, b squared. All right, order of operation says you have to handle powers first. And look, there's no adding or subtracting in here. Then everybody inside is going to get that power. All of them will. And just that parentheses. So look at what we have. We would have 3 squared. We would have a to the 4th squared. We would have b to the 4th squared. There's that big parentheses. And then over here would be 6a to the 3 b squared, because it was just patiently waiting for everything else to happen. Now, if you look here and you go, oh, look, they messed up. They put 8s. Well, hold on there. 3 squared is just 9. See, there's that 9. So they did that right. Here, I have one base with 2 powers. Well, we just talked about that. When you have one base with 2 powers right next to each other, that's when you multiply. So 4 times 2 is definitely, an a to the 8. So you see it was right. It is a to the 8. 4 times 2 again is b to the 8. So yeah, they're right so far. It looked a little weird, but it was right. And this one's still waiting over here, b squared. And now it says multiply. Well, remember, these are regular numbers. They're not powers. Regular numbers should be multiplied. And if we're going to multiply them, well, then 9 times 6 is 54. And then, of course, my powers. Now look at this. Now I have 2 a's. Then that means this is when we add. You add your powers, but your numbers in front should be multiplied. So 8 plus 3, well, that's 11. 8 plus 2, well, there's 10. And look at that, perfect match. And there's their mistake. They probably, it looks like they added the 9 and the 6, when in reality, they should have multiplied those numbers. So the mistake came in step number 3. All right. And finally, our very last problem in our review, so we could get you going with that test, is this. Now, this is a composition. There's nothing in your word wall about this because, well, it's supposed to be an easier concept, but this is what they want me to work with. And yeah, look, they told me what G is, they told me what F is, but that doesn't matter. You're not multiplying. What you're doing here is you're supposed to work with the inside, which is the one closest to the X. And then, of course, you have your outside function. So I'm going to work with the inside first. The inside says f of x. Well, f of x is x minus 5. And then I'm going to work with the outside function. Well, the outside function is just the g. And no, I'm not going to put an x. I'm going to leave it blank. That's the whole purpose of this composition. G of blank. I see an x, I'm going to leave it blank. Look at what it equals. I see an x, I'm going to put it blank. To the power of 2 minus 4. When you're doing the outside function, learn to leave it blank. And now look, f of x, which is this, is what gets put in here, into both of them. And if you notice, that's exactly what they have. Look at that, x minus 5 squared minus 4. So far, they're doing it right. Now, I understand that when we did this problem over here, I said, hey, there's no adding or subtracting. I gave everybody a power of 2. But when you look at this one, yeah, there's a power right here, but there's a minus sign. You are not allowed to give everybody a power of 2. Remember, this was the warning that we had for you. We said when you see something like this, you're supposed to write it twice. And then you're supposed to multiply 4 times as you go through that problem. So notice that's their mistake. They gave everything a power of 2. That's where they failed. So they messed up on step number 2. You're supposed to multiply 4 times. In fact, look at what you're supposed to get. Let me move this a little bit over. X times x is x squared. X times negative 5 is negative 5x. Negative 5 times x, negative 5x. And negative 5 times negative 5 is positive 25. And yes, patiently waiting was at minus 4. So remember, we don't even look at what they did. We already know they messed up. So I end up with x squared. These two together make negative 10x. And when I combine these two, that's when I get the positive 21. This should be the solution to g of f of x. Now remember, I started with f as the inside because it was the one closest to the x, and literally inside of parentheses. The g was the outside. That's why I did that one second. So be careful. If on the test they say f of g of x, then you would start with g. All right, so with that said, remember on the test, you're only allowed to use your word wall. That's the only thing that can be out. So you have to put this paper away. You can also use the calculator that's going to be on the test or the Desmos that will automatically open for you. So don't close it. No phones. We shouldn't see any phones out. You cannot use the calculator on your phone as well. You know that already. I understand the whole music thing. Go for it. But we should not see the phone out once you set your music. With that said, good luck today. And just make sure that any missing assignment you have for Unit 7, that it gets turned in. There's also an extra credit as soon as you're done with the test. Have a good day, everybody.